So it's people are real excited to hear from you.
Well, great. I'm excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right, so Jennifer, whenever you're ready, I'll get going.
All right, I went ahead and started the recording so Philip can chop off the beginning parts. So, whenever y'all are ready.
Jim, how do I pronounce your last name? I want to make sure I have it right.
McIngvale.
McIngvale. That's what I thought. Okay. Well, good Shabbos, and it's a pleasure to have all of you with us as we continue our service this evening. And I have an opportunity to ask some questions and a discussion with a friend, someone who's spoken at Beth Yeshurun before, and someone all of you know as Houstonians, Jim McIngvale, otherwise known as Mattress Mac. And Jim, it's an honor to have you with us for our community here at Congregation Beth Yeshurun and spend a few moments with you on this Shabbat to talk to you, to learn from you, to find inspiration from your story. So let me start, Jim, by asking you, tell us your story. How did you get into the furniture business, and what are some of the challenges you had to overcome?
First of all, Rabbi, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be here. I got in the furniture business in 1979. I was broke, unemployed, living at home with my parents, generally feeling sorry for myself. And I was watching a Oral Roberts video of all things. And he said, get up, go to work, and make something out of your life. And that really struck me profoundly. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I got a job the next day at a furniture store and learned the trade for 18 months. And then my wife and I piled all our belongings and $5,000 in a little red truck, came to Houston in 1981 and went to work. And the rest is history, as they say. We're still here 40 years later, knock on wood, solid wood, by the way.
Now, what were some of the challenges you had to overcome? You started with nothing.
Well, the challenges we had to overcome were obviously, we were starting a furniture store on the side of the road, which probably wasn't done very often. And all the people in the industry said we'd never make it. We had no capital. We had no bankers, had no financial means. But what we had was a great big unfair advantage, and that's called desire. I firmly believe in this country, you can do anything you want to do if you want to do it bad enough. So, you know, we worked 14, 16 hours a day. Many a time we'd sell out of furniture on Saturday night. And I would take the day's receipts and drive a U-Haul truck to Dallas and to my friend's store where I used to work. I'd spend all the money we'd taken in that Saturday, drive it back down here Sunday night, and Sunday morning, and sell it on Sunday. So we worked a lot and put a lot of effort into it, still doing it. And the challenges are the fact that retail's a tough business. It's always changing, but you got to innovate or you're going to evaporate.
Well, Jim, I think one of the reasons why Houstonians love you so much is your enthusiasm is contagious. When we see you out in the community, we see your commercials. How do you do it? Where does your inspiration come from?
Well, my father was always a very jubilant, outgoing person, very charismatic, and I try to role model him. And, you know, I just live by this motto, grateful for everything, entitled to nothing. And I think we're all very grateful. We should be grateful. We should be thankful to live in this country with the abundance of plenty that we have. And if we wake up and count our blessings every day rather than counting our deficits, we'll have a better life. And that's what I try to instill in my children and in all the wonderful ladies and men that work here, is that we're lucky to be here. Let's take care of these customers and let's put our chins up and smiles on. Let's have a good day.
I love that. And you're right. I mean, that's a big part of the Jewish tradition, is thanking God for every day and proclaiming our gratefulness. It's
Amen to that.
It means to be Jewish, and I think all good religions. Jim, several years ago, you spoke to a 100 Jewish men's group, and I should say you've spoken to our men's group twice, and we always love having you. And I'll never forget about how you spoke about your daughter, Elizabeth, and the challenges she had to overcome. For those who don't know the story, would you mind sharing that now?
Yeah, when Liz was like 12 or 13, she was overcome by obsessive compulsive disorder, Howard Hughes disease. And so my family has a history of mental illness. It wasn't that shocking to me, but I knew we had to get her help. So we took her to many psychiatrists out in the North Houston area where we lived, and they'd say it in front of her that she was going to be a basket case for the rest of her life and to put her in a mental institution. Well, you know, her mother and I, we're not buyers, we're sellers. And we weren't buying all that. And we were going to find a way to help this child get better. So her mother searched the internet, and I talked to people I knew at Texas Medical Center. And it was a hell on earth there for about 18 months. My wife quit going to work because she had to stay home with Liz because she was suicidal. And every night my wife would sleep upstairs with Liz. She would scream, God, what did I do to deserve this? I wish I was dead. And she'd get a butcher knife and beg her beloved sister to kill her. So it was very traumatic. When one family member has a mental illness, everybody has a mental illness. And so we kept going and going. And finally, one day we found this place called the McIngvale Clinic in Topeka, Kansas. So it was one day before her birthday, we had to kidnap her and put her on an airplane and take her up to Topeka. And then once we put her in that mental institution, all of her nightmares were coming true. She was going to be institutionalized the rest of her life. So I'll never forget leaving there that cold, snowy day in Kansas. Her little face, 13 years old, pushed up against the plate glass window door, screaming at her mother, Mom, please don't leave me here, because she felt like we were going to leave her in that mental institution for the rest of her life. But we left her there, and this little girl named Amy, who's still one of her best friends, came and put her arm around her and said, it's okay. I cried when I got here. I'll cry in 2 weeks when I leave. This place changed my life, saved my life. So Liz got into the counseling, and she really worked at it. And thanks to the good Lord, the doctors and nurses at McIngvale, she got better. Came back to Houston, re-enrolled at Westfield High School, which is a public high school out in the north side. And the wonderful teachers and administrators there helped her get through the OCD. And then she had another severe lapse a year later. Because mental illness is a cruel disease, no one knows who it may strike or why. Mental illness never goes away, it lasts forever. My child will always be walking on the edge of a cliff. I cannot keep her from falling. So she went back into the hospital at McIngvale, which at that time had moved to Houston, for another 8 weeks. And then she got out, and one of the proudest days of our life was seeing that child graduate from high school, which they said she'd never do. And then she tried college, failed to that many times. And finally, she got the hang of it. She began helping people with mental illnesses with OCD like herself, and that became her life's work. And now, fast forward, she has a PhD, and she runs the OCD clinic here in Houston for the Harvard Medical School. So she's come a long way.
Wow. She's got her PhD today.
Yeah.
Did she recently get married?
Yeah, she recently got married, and she's going to have a baby. So everything's good. She still fights the mental illness every day, and we'll gladly admit that to you. And now she's helping the explosion of mental illness that's occurred during this pandemic. So that's very concerning to her.
Jim, if there's one piece of advice you'd give other parents or grandparents that are watching this who have a child or a grandchild who struggles with mental illness, what's one piece of advice you'd give them how you got through this?
You know, tough times never last. Tough people do. And God puts obstacles in our place to see how we can overcome them. And, you know, you got to keep the faith. You got to hang in there, and you got to believe in that child. And I see so many wonderful parents coming up here to Gallery Furniture every day. One the other day had 2 beautiful children, both with severe Down syndrome. And there's mom and dad, you know, taking those wonderful kids out and making sure they were taken care of. And it's just an inspiration to see the strength of the human spirit and what we can do when we don't give up. So my advice would be never give up. Believe in yourself, believe in the child, believe in the good Lord who's looking down on all of us, and just keep going till you get there.
Well said. You know, it brings me to my next question. You mentioned at the store, and I've been to the store before, shop for myself. I remember you're right there in the front. When I've called to have you come speak about the Yeshurun, I call the store. I say, is Mac there or is Jim there? You get on the phone. I've seen you at Astros games, shaking hands with everyone in the stands. How do you make yourself so available? How do you juggle being a public figure and being so available?
That's part of my strength is I'm out there with the customers, and you get such great feedback from the customers rather than being in an office where you don't talk to them. So the customer may come up and say, your service was great or your service sucked. So either way, you want to know. And I want to be there, and I want to see what the ever-changing demographics is coming in the store. I want to see what people like, what they don't like, what they ask for that we don't have. And to me, being out there among the people is what life's all about. I draw my energy from our customers and the community. So in fact, we're having a food drive out here today. So there's lots of people out there getting food. So I just try to be around as many people as possible. And that's what keeps me young. I'll be 70 years old next month, and I feel like I'm 18. So as long as I can do that, I'll be okay.
You look great, and you feel great. As I mentioned before, I mean, your enthusiasm is contagious. And I know all of us as Houstonians enjoy just it gives us a little inspiration each day. And so I want to ask you two final questions. You've always been a very charitable person. And as we struggle through this ongoing pandemic, and I know you care a lot about your fellow Houstonians, what's your advice as we go through this and how to get through this?
My advice is, to look around and look at, compared to what? How bad are we? Yes, we have troubles. Yes, we have problems, but compared to what? I have these guys that work here for me from Nigeria, from Mexico City, from all these other different places around the world. And they tell me that, the worst off citizen in the United States still has one of these gadgets, has a cell phone. And, we're living better in the United States now than kings and queens were in all the previous centuries. So we need to focus on the fact that, yes, things may be tough, but tough times never last. Tough people do. And just keep that enthusiasm and keep going, keep trucking till we break through. I think that, the pandemic has been tough on all of us. It's absolutely killed, restaurants and other retail stores, but we hope for an end to this and a return to normalcy and let people get back and lead their lives again. One of the things we're trying to do is help people get better jobs. So here at Gallery Furniture, we feel like we all have a responsibility for the well-being of our community. And I think that's very important. So the question I ask myself and I ask these people that work with me every day is, would the customers miss us if we were to go out of business tomorrow? Would the customers miss us if we were to go out of business tomorrow? Or would they miss this synagogue or this church or this politician or whoever? So we try to stay relevant. So in the last year, we opened a preschool for all of our employees that have young kids that need to be in preschool. So it's free. They don't have to pay $1,000 a month for preschool. We're also bringing in the neighborhood kids here for the preschool. And we have a high school for students. We started right here at this furniture store from age 16 to 26 that dropped out of high school that's free. And we have trade schools where we're teaching plumbing, electricity, welding, auto mechanics, sales, culinary, all sorts of trade school for free. So we're doing all those things to help better our local community and give these people a chance and an opportunity to break the cycle of welfare, break the cycle of poverty, and get a good paying job and change the trajectory of themselves, but more importantly, change the trajectory of several generations to come through that magical exceler called work.
Look, that's America, right? And that's why I think all of us who love this country have always appreciated that this country gives us the freedoms to work. Yeah. To make something of ourselves and to rise above. And I know as Jewish Americans, that's something we've always, been very grateful for, that this country has given us, unlike so many other countries in history, and given not just as Jews, but as so many minorities, an opportunity to get ahead. All of us as Americans.
Absolutely. And hardworking Jewish people help build the country. It's like Liz, my daughter, who was so deathly ill. Work is life's greatest therapy, and work changed her life and saved her life. And it can do the same thing for so many. And I'm a huge believer in work, nuclear family, and faith. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Well, that brings me to my last question. And it's a divided times, right? We've become a very partisan country. What's your hope for this next year on what can happen to heal this country?
My hope for the next year is that we'll all look around and look at our commonalities, not our differences, and hopefully end the vitriol. And my hope for the country is that we can have a religious revival. I strongly believe when people go to church, they go to synagogue, they go to mosque, whatever it is, that they're part of a community. They're part of a community. And we have such an epidemic of loneliness in this country. And then when you're a single parent alone with a child or two children, you have a problem. You don't know where to turn. If they're going to the synagogue or the church, they've got a community there to support them. And I think it's so important that we realize that church is so much more than just the service on the Sabbath. It's a community of people that will support each other. So I think my prayer would be for a more religious nation, and also a nation that forgives each other and can talk to each other and not argue all the time.
Well, I couldn't have said any better myself. And I agree. That's been one of the hardest things about this pandemic, and is during this difficult time, we can't come together and hug each other and be there for each other. And I can't wait to get everyone back into this building. And I'm sure you feel the same where you go. And that's coming. God willing, we'll all get vaccinated soon. And I think in the meantime, listening to voices like yourself will help us all and all that you're doing out there. So thank you for everything you give back to the community. And Jim, thank you for spending some time with us, and all the best. Only God's blessings for you and your family.
Thank you, Rabbi, and thanks for everything you do and your community does to keep the faith and help us all lead a better and more pious life.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good job.